whispers of allegiance often arrive long before awareness does. Sometimes a person walks through life believing they are invisible, unnoticed, irrelevant to the larger currents of existence. Then out of nowhere, an entire circle of minds begins to mirror their strength, speak their name, claim their essence as something ancient, powerful, long awaited. The confusion feels surreal at first. How could strangers recognize worth that even close friends ignored? How could unfamiliar faces sense leadership in someone still learning how to heal from old wounds? This unexpected loyalty becomes a mirror that reflects a version of the self never consciously acknowledged. It forces a realization that growth often travels ahead of recognition. A spirit forged in silence is noticed long before the conscious self catches up to its own shadow. Those secret supporters are not worshiping a myth. They are responding to the energy built through resilience. A moment arrives when the mind wonders why these unknown observers see what familiar ones refuse to acknowledge. It becomes obvious that environments wounded by jealousy rarely praise transformation. Outsiders see what insiders spend years undermining. The secret society in this story represents those who recognize potential without needing history to validate it. Their certainty feels strange because it contradicts the internal doubts sharpened by past betrayals. Yet something inside understands. Leadership is not always chosen. Sometimes it is revealed through survival. A person becomes a symbol for others simply because they refuse to collapse. In their resilience, strangers saw direction. In their silence, strangers heard clarity. That recognition unsettles the heart because it exposes the truth about how often greatness is born unnoticed. Confusion deepens when unexpected admiration contrasts with memories of being dismissed. The mind begins comparing past rejection to current reverence, and the contrast cuts sharply. It forces a reevaluation of self-worth. Maybe the past did not properly measure value. Maybe the ones who belittled were simply afraid. The secret society becomes a metaphor for the world, seeing the truth long before the self does. Leadership often appears in those who never sought power, but carried responsibility with unspoken discipline. Many people wear crowns loudly. A few carry them quietly. The quiet carriers are the ones strangers recognize instinctively. Their character speaks louder than their words. Their calm unsettles unstable minds. Their strength draws loyalty without requesting it. This unexpected recognition brings a strange type of pressure. For the first time, someone feels accountable to a future version of themselves, rather than the wounded past. The burden of leadership does not come from attention. It comes from understanding that people now expect direction. Secret loyalty reveals the impact each action carries. Every step becomes a signal. Every decision becomes a message. But this pressure does not crush. It refines. It forces a person to rise even when they doubt they can. It shapes maturity faster than solitude ever could. People who survive storms naturally guide others through darkness, not through force, but through presence. Their scars become maps. The emergence of unknown supporters reveals another truth. People observe more than they speak. Strangers often notice strength before familiar eyes do. While the person in the center healed in silence, others watched the transformation unfold through subtle acts of discipline. They saw choices that required courage. They saw boundaries that required self-respect. They saw integrity that required sacrifice. These qualities are what form leaders, not titles, not noise, not popularity. Leadership is built from internal decisions no one applauds. When strangers claim someone as their leader, they are acknowledging the unseen battles that shaped them. As this recognition grows, the person once defined by doubt begins to understand something profound. Leadership does not require knowledge of followers. Influence operates in the shadows. Every action becomes a ripple. Each moment of choosing truth over comfort becomes a signal that travels far beyond immediate circles. Unknown observers connect those signals into a pattern that even the person living the experience could not see. Leadership is not about directing others. It is about becoming a version of oneself that inspires direction naturally. This realization is liberating and terrifying at the same time. The mind enters a stage of self-reflection. What exactly did these unseen people see? What part of the journey inspired such allegiance? The answer is simpler than expected. They saw authenticity. They saw someone refusing to become bitter despite being broken. They saw someone rebuilding quietly instead of performing resilience for applause. They saw someone learning to navigate pain without inflicting it on others. These qualities create unintended leaders. People follow those who survive darkness without turning dark themselves. They follow those who act with dignity even when disrespected. They follow those who walk with purpose even when tired. Authenticity is magnetic. This recognition forces a shift in identity. The person who once felt small begins to accept their own significance, not for ego, not for validation, but for responsibility. Leadership becomes a responsibility to protect the healed version of oneself. This version must stand firmly, not because others demand it, but because the journey required too much sacrifice to regress. The secret society symbolizes the world's expectation for this person to continue evolving. The future requires strength. Strength requires awareness. Awareness requires acceptance. Accepting this leadership role is accepting that the world sees potential before the self does. The weight of unexpected loyalty becomes a turning point. It pushes a person to drop old habits, old doubts, old versions of themselves. Being recognized as a leader forces a person to act like one even when fear whispers otherwise. This does not mean perfection. It means persistence. Leadership means maintaining standards even when no one is watching. It means choosing growth over comfort. It means carrying silence with dignity instead of clinging to noise. It means walking forward even when the path is unclear. Unknown supporters are proof that someone's story is guiding more people than they will ever meet. Purpose grows when least expected. Quiet observers always exist, even in the moments when the world feels brutally indifferent. Someone out there pays attention to the decisions made in silence, the boundaries set without announcement, the strength rebuilt without applause. Unknown eyes recognize transformation long before familiar ones do. These hidden witnesses might never speak, but they take note of the subtleties that others overlook. They see the nights a person chooses restraint over retaliation, the days they maintain dignity instead of collapsing into chaos. Every uncelebrated moment of discipline becomes a signal. These signals collect, forming an invisible trail of respect. Long before the self feels powerful, unknown eyes already classify that person as rare. That recognition is both unsettling and empowering, because it proves the journey mattered even when it felt unnoticed. Reputation often forms without participation. While someone is consumed with surviving heartbreak or disentangling from toxic dynamics, strangers are watching the evolution unfold from a distance. They observe the way a person resurfaces from collapse with sharper boundaries and steadier energy. They notice the posture that once bent now standing firm. Unknown observers watch the small habits that build a new identity. They see choices made with precision instead of impulse. They notice how the voice grows calmer, how the gaze becomes clearer, how the chaos no longer dictates the emotional storms within. That level of observation happens quietly, but its impact is immense. Unknown eyes judge the soul, not the performance. The world does not reward loud healing. It rewards the kind that reshapes a person from within. Strangers, often disconnected from old versions and old wounds, are the ones who notice the transformation first. They have no memories of past fragility to compare against, so they see only the sharpened version. That fresh perspective gives them clarity the person's inner circle may lack. While the familiar individuals cling to outdated narratives, unknown eyes see the present without distortion. They recognize new strength faster than the self does. They sense the resilience forged in heartbreak, the wisdom sharpened through disappointment, the aura refined by survival. Their recognition feels eerie because it reflects a truth the self has not fully embraced yet. A person often underestimates the way their smallest decisions create silent impact. Unknown watchers observe consistency. They see the discipline in staying calm when provoked, the maturity in refusing old patterns, the courage in walking away from harmful environments. These acts may feel insignificant to the person making them, but to an observer, they signify evolution. Unknown eyes analyze the difference between someone who reacts and someone who responds. They notice the newly acquired emotional stability. They see a person moving differently in a world that previously controlled them. The impact is invisible but powerful. Observers begin spreading whispers about the transformation long before the individual accepts their own strength. People in pain rarely realize that their healing journey turns them into a symbol for others. Someone out there is watching them survive, watching them rebuild, watching them choose peace without bitterness. Unknown supporters gather silently because authentic growth is magnetic. It draws the quiet, the thoughtful, the wounded, the wise. They sense something familiar in the story, something that mirrors their own battles. These observers begin treating the healed person like an unspoken leader, not because of charisma, but because of authenticity. Unknown eyes recognize the truth behind the posture. They see the scars. They respect the journey. They follow the energy, not the noise. Recognition from strangers often exposes what familiar people tried to hide. Unknown eyes notice a glow that close ones tried to dim. They see talent that insecure individuals tried to belittle. They see strength that envious hearts refuse to acknowledge. This contrast reveals the truth about one's environment. Sometimes the world outside sees potential more clearly than the circles closest to the heart. Unknown observers notice what others overlook because they carry no resentment, no bias, no history to complicate perception. Their reverence becomes a reminder that the journey mattered, that resilience shines even when denied by the familiar. That recognition becomes fuel to continue rising. Impact often expands beyond anyone's awareness. A person who survived emotional storms may not realize how many silent witnesses draw courage from their endurance. Unknown observers notice when someone keeps showing up despite exhaustion. They notice when someone chooses growth over vengeance. They see how much restraint is required to stay kind after betrayal. These silent admirers understand the difficulty behind such decisions because they have felt the weight themselves. Their recognition becomes a quiet salute, an acknowledgement of shared experiences. Without ever meeting, the healed person becomes a symbol of possibility. The truth about unknown observers is that they often become the ones who carry a person's story farther than expected. They retell the transformation to others. They reference the strength they witnessed. They speak highly of the discipline and resilience. In their stories, the person becomes larger than life without even realizing it. This unintentional influence creates a ripple effect. Unknown eyes carry the story until it no longer belongs to one person, but becomes an example for many. The power of influence multiplies in spaces the individual never enters. Every healed decision sends a message into the world. Every quiet act of self-respect plants seeds in someone's imagination. Unknown eyes notice because they crave examples of courage that do not feel unattainable. The healed person becomes proof that survival is not only possible but transformative. Their journey becomes a blueprint without them ever trying to teach. The sharpness gained through pain inspires those who once doubted themselves. In this way, leadership forms naturally, long before the person realizes they have followers.